Thank you. I'm obviously pleased to be joined by my legislative partner here, Speaker Perez, who will speak in a moment. I want to make the following comments. We are deeply dismayed by the governor's decision. The governor is fond of citing the art of war. His decision is apparently part of some elaborate strategy to force a confrontation. That's fine. But success depends on articulating your first choice and being prepared and articulating the next best alternative. For 6 months, the governor has tried and not succeeded in gaining the requisite 4 Republican votes to pass his plan. And the Speaker and I and our caucuses have stood with him all the way. If the governor can succeed over the next 2 weeks in a way that he has not succeeded over the last 6 months, that's great. We're happy to come back and pass Plan A, as we call it. And if the governor wants to really cut deeper to universities, to public schools, to public safety, to services for the elderly, and people in need, he has the constitutional authority to do so. It's called the blue pencil. Now, our caucuses made significant progress yesterday and in March, frankly, with one arm tied behind our backs. With a 2/3 supermajority for revenue, we made decisions we could not imagine making in any other time. Deep cuts, $12.5 billion plus of real cuts that are unprecedented. We met our deadline. The governor's deadline is July 1st. He has rightfully criticized the Republicans for months for their lack of specificity or details regarding their so-called alternative budget. We are too far down the road for the governor to continue avoiding a specific proposal or specific set of proposals of what he intends to do or wants to be done if he can't gain those Republican votes. Governor, over the next 2 weeks, if you can't get the Republican votes, give us your specific changes to the budget that we passed yesterday that can be adopted by a majority vote. The governor's constant references to his January proposal ring hollow if he is unable to deliver Republican votes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to generally associate myself with the comments of the pro tem. I, too, am dismayed by the governor's actions today. Over the last 6 months, we have moved heaven and earth to pass governor's Plan A. In March, we attempted to pass the entirety of his proposal. We enacted deep cuts, $14 billion of solutions. Cuts that, while the Republicans said that they wanted to cut the size of government, they didn't deliver the votes for. Those were Democratic votes that delivered the responsible cuts in March. And then Republicans failed to put up the votes to put the ballot measure on the question about the governor's revenue extension. And that's when it made the most sense, when it could have been before the voters in June and informed the ultimate decisions that we made yesterday in passing a balanced budget. But we've worked with the governor since then, up until yesterday, to do everything possible to pass his Plan A. When he failed again to get the needed Republican votes, we did the most responsible thing that we could do with the limited resources before us. We passed an on-time, balanced budget that had meaningful cuts, far deeper than any of us would have liked to see, but they were based in the reality of the economic crisis facing the state of California. Why didn't we go further? We didn't go further because further cuts would have been, in some cases, gratuitous, and in other cases, devastating to economic recovery that we're now seeing in California. We have 2 obligations. One is to balance our budget, and 2 is to do it in a way that helps us rebuild the economy of the state of California, helps us build for jobs and economic recovery, helps us build and invest in education. And we're very proud of the work that the majorities in both houses did to effectuate that. The governor's actions today only take him back to his initial proposal. As the pro tem has said, we haven't seen any movement in 6 months. We're hopeful that he can find the movement necessary from Republicans over the next 2 weeks. But short of that action, yesterday's budget was the best hope that California has for economic recovery. It closed over 60% of the structural deficit. A greater reduction in structural deficit has never been seen. So we are very proud of the work that we did with the limited resources that we have. We stand by the actions that we took yesterday. We're hopeful to see what it is that the governor has in mind to do over the next 2 weeks. But quite frankly, his action is dismaying.
Happy to answer your questions.
Mr. Steinberg, could you respond is he planning to also veto the trailer bills? Are you talking about that? And what happens, could you address that whole issue of the trailer bills and the taxes/fees issue that you...
We assume, we did talk to him about that, and he wasn't very specific, but we assume that he'll veto the trailer bills. You know, the redevelopment issue, for an example, $1.7 billion that frankly cannot be made up with greater cuts to schools, universities, and public safety. Controversial, difficult. The speaker had to twist arms, and in fact he did it twice, in March and yesterday. It was the last bill we got out, as I had to work with my members, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, but we got it done.
But if I can I just say,
yeah,
that was $1.7 billion of solutions for the budget year and $400 million a year in additional funding to schools and special districts that are on the line based on what action he takes. It was a very difficult work for us to find a middle ground between his original proposal for outright elimination and something that allows economic development to continue in redevelopment zones, creates budgetary savings in the budget year, and out-year investment in education and special districts. These are not small feats that were accomplished.
They're not, and the larger point here is that if you go back to March, the governor could not get the 2/3 supermajority to pass his redevelopment reform. We found a way, working with our legislative council, who's never easy when it comes to giving us the majority vote authority, to pass a reform proposal that would provide the savings, reform redevelopment with a majority vote. We did it. Now if he vetoes it, we don't know where you get back that $1.7 billion.
Follow-up question. Have those trailer bills actually been delivered to him?
Are they at the desk?
Some of them have, and some of them are still at the desk.
So you can hold those. You can hold the redevelopment up. You can just hold it. It's been done before.
We don't have to send it down today or tomorrow.
Has that one been sent?
That one has not been sent.
That one has not been sent yet.
If the governor's not able to get the 4 Republican votes by June 1st, July 30th, and he demands that more cuts be made, will you be open to that? Will there be any further spending cuts?
I don't think I've ever said anything different than this in this room. All options have to be on the table as you're engaged in negotiations. I don't see the votes for something that does cuts beyond the level that we passed yesterday. The art of politics is finding that sweet spot where you can get as far as you can and bring enough people with you. It's something that the governor has struggled with respect to getting his 2/3. But if you go further than what we did yesterday, I think he has a hard time finding the majority vote to do that. If he has all 28 Republicans, maybe you can do something, but he hasn't proven to be very successful in getting Republican votes for any of the elements.
Can I answer the same question? Sure. You know, I agree with John. Of course, everything has to be on the table. But and we all desire to be bipartisan and nonpartisan, right? That's the way things most often get done. This morning is an example of our not expressing our displeasure with the Republican Party, but with our own governor. But fair is fair. We've made $12.5 billion worth of cuts on top of all the other cuts over the last number of years. I heard from the Chief Justice of California that the additional cut we made yesterday to the courts may make it difficult for the courts to provide real access to people. There are people that are mad and angry about what we've done thus far. So the idea of deeper cuts to public universities and public schools and courts and public safety, that would be a terrible resolution of this. And I'll get John. The governor, I think, is really getting caught up and frankly a little bit confused between total victory, which in this process cannot actually be achieved in most instances in 1 year, and progress. John said it. We made he says 60%, between 60% and a two-thirds dent in the structural deficit in California. What's wrong with declaring partial victory, saying we made progress, and then finishing the work?
And to be clear, our preferred solution would have been to make the dent that we made on the structural deficit through the cuts and other actions that we took, and paired that with revenue extensions. The fact is that the governor couldn't deliver on the votes for the revenue extensions. So do you make the good the enemy of the perfect? And that's never the preferable way to govern.
Were you given any commitment from the governor prior to yesterday that he would either veto or pass signing the budget you sent to him?
No, but that's in a way part of the problem, because I asked a number of times, Governor, what is your plan B? And he wasn't interested in talking about that before our constitutional deadline. And now we are where we are. Going forward, we support getting his plan done and his continued efforts to try to get the Republican votes. He made that his obligation. We support him in trying to succeed. But now he has got to articulate what the alternative is with specificity.
But let's be clear. The action today was completely unnecessary.
Right.
We took a multi-step, multi-phased approach here. In March, we closed $14 billion worth of the deficit. Yesterday, we balanced the remainder of the budget. Those two actions complement each other. And they also allowed the governor the time between now and July 1st to continue negotiating with the Republicans about revenue extensions, another complementary action. So today's action is completely unnecessary, but the governor seems to be determined to pass his original Plan A. We're supportive of Plan A. But if he fails to do it, nothing beyond what we did yesterday is visibly before us as an option.
Have you spoken to the controller's office, and are you sure you're going to get paid and your members are going to get paid by virtue of the budget you passed?
We clearly met the obligation to pass a balanced on-time budget. What's at issue right now, though, is much more important than pay. What's at issue right now is creating the economic stability for the state of California that's essential. The action that we did yesterday created that economic stability, helped us significantly cut into the structural deficit, and allowed us to work our way out of this problem over the next couple of years, consistent with what the Legislative Analyst's Office has said on multiple occasions is the preferred route should the governor's revenue extensions not pass. These were exceptionally difficult and responsible actions that we took. And now, between now and the end of the month, we have to continue to work with the governor to make sure that by the end of the month, we have a balanced budget not only passed by the legislature, but signed by the governor.
But given the quick condemnation by the governor of the components of this budget, and he said it wasn't balanced, he said it was not financeable, and he does it the day after you pass it, it looks to the public like you just passed the budget to get paid. Can you
No,
respond to that?
the governor was complimentary of the work of the legislature, of the Democrats in the legislature. He was condemning the Republicans for not being full participants in the solution. When you make a veto message, you usually don't say, this is a wonderful, beautiful package you've sent me, but I'm going to veto it anyway. So there's a little bit of need to back up the veto.
We stand by our work and the work of our colleagues.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.